think she's got some signals. Okay. Oh. Okay.
Right. But how can steel be up 70% when the tariff is 25%?
Yeah.
Well, hello.
Oh,
But I don't,
Steel
I,
was from China, didn't it?
no, there's a lot of steel from Canada. It depends. I need to call them and see if this is ID.
Hello?
Hi, Sarah.
It's also
Oh,
exactly,
great.
oh, Sarah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Exactly what
Oh.
happened. And our fearless leader is the one who kicked off the whole thing.
Hey, Parks, haven't seen you in a while, buddy.
I think we're gonna go and get started. I don't think we're gonna.
I've been pulled up.
We're just
Fruit
along for the ride,
finally.
Steve.
Oh, yeah.
How you guys? It's just
Good.
wow. And hopefully the
And now that
pendulum
the
will swing
weather's
back.
warm, we're gonna start to
It's
filming
getting a little
again.
better. Oh, perfect.
The faster
That's
the
awesome.
better.
Did you have a good winter?
I did.
Great.
So far. Yeah, I think it
Us
was a little
too.
bad. I don't
I
think
did,
I've
maybe.
ever in my life, even when I felt there was a president that I opposed,
Yeah.
that he was actively working to harm me.
Huh.
I did that.
Hmm.
Right, on that note.
On that note,
All right, let's go ahead and start the DDA meeting at 9:03 on the 8th of April. Let's do a roll call, please.
mic on.
It is on. Can you hear me? Okay.
My ear isn't working.
Greg Beckler,
Steve Fitzgerald.
Nick Crab.
Lori Hannon.
Okay, buddy.
Parks Thompson. Katie Souls.
Very young.
All right, move over to approval of the agenda. Any questions, comments, discussions on the agenda? I'd like to move to approve.
And Lori, it looks like Abby just joined.
Perfect.
If you want to add her to the roll call.
Yeah. Oh, I don't see participants. Okay, there she is now.
Good morning, Abby.
Abby.
I wasn't here, so I can't do my usual just approve the event. So
Yeah.
I don't know about that last agenda because I missed the
Does
meeting.
anyone want to move to approve
So
last?
moved.
Yep. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any comments, approvals? Are we all in favor of the approval,
Aye.
except for Katie? Okay,
Who was the second on that one? Okay.
Or
one of them.
Either one.
They were both, yeah.
Hi.
All right.
All right, approval of the consent agenda and meetings from last week. Last year, month, what is it?
Can we just
Month.
do that?
Yeah, sorry, we did, I think we did approval of agenda and then I think someone said consent agenda.
Oh, okay.
instead. Consent agenda from last month.
Make a motion to
Motion to, okay,
approve the
Seconded.
All
consent
right.
agenda.
all good. All approved,
Aye.
all right. Open forum, I don't see anyone else on. No. Okay, we'll move over to economic impact analysis of the Fraser Valley Arts Center.
Great, and I'll just give a brief preamble here. Kevin, as you can see on the screen, has joined us. So one of the things we're doing as we prepare for the next phase of development for Fraser Valley Arts and the center is preparing an economic impact analysis that we would use for grants, foundation work, community, et cetera, et cetera. Kevin, who is Greg's partner, but also a member of the board and the treasurer for Fraser Valley Arts, has some experience in this area, having done it for a variety of their own projects. And so one of the things I've asked him to do is to prepare a thesis that would be informed by a variety of stakeholders in our community, this being the first one. So what we're hoping to do here today is simply review with you the assumptions behind our model, to take your input to see if they sound reasonable and accurate. We're not trying to pitch this at this point. We will at some point come to this group and say, this is what we think the final result looks like. But really, we're just trying to inform our assumptions. I'm going to essentially recuse myself from anything other than a question of fact, behind an assumption. I'm not going to try and influence the group here in any way behind these assumptions, just because I'm sitting on the board and I'm also the president of Fraser Valley Arts. Does that all make sense?
Thank you.
Yep.
Cool. All right, Kevin, let's turn it over to you. And you all should have this model in your, it's linked in the agenda. And Kevin will probably be able to display it.
Hey, everyone, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Cool. I am going to share my screen as well. But this is fairly informal. Want to just kind of talk through our thought process, how we landed here, and what this all means for everyone. Let's see. All right. Let me know if everyone can see that.
We see a map.
Map.
Perfect. The map is what I was going for. So
Okay.
this is downtown Basalt in 2015. And this is kind of a close case study that we use to arrive at some of our numbers, and validate what we were thinking holistically on, hey, what can an art center really do for a community, in the context of what the DDA is also trying to accomplish, right? So I think similar goals in the long run and holistically, but accomplishing them in different avenues. So quickly, before I go into what our projections are, I wanted to look at downtown Basalt as a whole. And this is April 4th, 2015. And so you can kind of see this gridded out area that really was what is now downtown Basalt. They made it the downtown. They changed the zoning similar to what Fraser did. And in 2016, I believe, the town of Basalt owned this parcel down here in the bottom left quadrant, that they gave to what is the equivalent of the Fraser Valley Arts Committee with the goal of building an arts center. And I'm just going to progress kind of, I think, 2 years by 2 years. You can start to see in 2017 was when the plat got approved for this art center, and then construction started. That skips a few years because I think there's only satellite images. Construction started in 2019. You can see in 2021, the art center was finished over here. And you can see downtown as a whole really filled in. And then as you keep going, this is 2023. You see surrounding areas develop. You see the area just became a lot nicer, candidly. And then there's no imagery for 2024. But one of the things Basalt mentions, if you ever talk to them, if you ever kind of look at the historical case study, is the art center, which was placed here, was a catalyst, not only for development, for new businesses, for old businesses, for really drawing people downtown, and creating this kind of walking metropolitan district where you leave your car and you go spend money and then go to a show at the theater, or you go to an arts class. They have kids' summer camps. So this is something that we are closely modeling it after. Our numbers are a toned back version of what they do, just because pricing differences in Pitkin County versus Grand County. But it gives us a good litmus as we really explore what is possible here. And so the sheet in front of all of you has this 10-year forecast on, hey, what do we think this is going to deliver? And what does this mean for stakeholders in the community, beyond just providing arts for the community? And so as we went through looking at other examples and looking at capacity of what we're trying to build, we came to some assumptions on number of classes a year, number of private events a year. What does this mean for lodging around the valley, with new hotels opening up? What does it mean for just general visitors, and people coming purely for a concert or a play or something along those lines? Um, and looking through this and what is the impact for local businesses, for the town of Fraser, and then the overall economy. So one thing, and we can go through the assumptions on this call, and then I can answer some questions. But the one thing we did was assign values to events, classes, weddings, everything along those lines, to arrive at a number in this spreadsheet that you guys see. And that's something we can change if people don't like the assumptions, if we think they're candidly off, or if we just think we can't handle those. And so quickly just looking at the high level, and before we dig in and before I answer questions, looking at events, because this thing, if we build it, will host events. We estimated 60 events a year. When you go down, the people per event is an assumption based on spacing at the actual art center, 100 people per event. If we say that the average cost per event per person is $32.
Hey, Kev,
Kevin,
can you
Yep.
put it up? Not everyone has it in the room.
yeah.
Oh, can you not see this?
No.
We see the map.
That's a problem. One sec.
You gotta leave the one screen and select the other.
Okay, 1 second.
But she doesn't have to call me Johnson. Remember that?
Oh, why can't I? Okay, here we go. New share. All right, can everyone see that now?
Yep.
Some numbers.
Yes.
Okay, so sorry about that. I was walking through this, which is what you all had in your packet, and then walked over to our inputs tab. But quickly going through just a quick example, like events. We were saying we'd have 60 events at the New Art Center a year. The average number of people per event, 100 people. The cost per person per event, $32. This is based on other similar projects. The spend per person at the event, $10, is very conservative. And then what's really interesting as you start to look at this and as you start to talk to some of these groups, is the spend per person before or after the event. And this is really, I think, where it gets interesting for this group, and we can all kind of articulate this however we want, but if anyone has gone to a concert or a play, I mean, it's pretty intuitive to go, hey, I'm going to go get some dinner before, or I'm going to get a drink after, or I'm going to go get a coffee before. And that's where these things really start to give back to local businesses and the community, in terms of dollars. And one thing we did here is you look at Basalt, which I showed. It's, I think their numbers were closer to about $40, $50 per person per event. Then again, if you go out to dinner in Basalt, you're spending a lot more money. This could be more, this could be less. And so as we look at everything here, it feeds into this model of, hey, let's add this all up and see what the total economic impact could be. And that's where we arrive at this idea of, hey, this is a pretty meaningful moneymaker for local businesses, first and foremost, and for the town of Fraser on a sales tax perspective, not just the sales tax from the internal revenue, but getting visitors to come to Fraser. And so looking at this now, taking a step back, the idea is, hey, this is a big investment. And Steve has done an amazing job raising money. I'm amazed how much we've done in the past 2 years. We still have a long way to go. But the ROI, the return on investment of getting something like this built and delivered for the local community, is exorbitant. And that's where we really want to hammer home, and we're going to work on and make sure you guys are all in agreement. But we think, and we can all hold hands and say this together, that we think that if we can get something like this done, the impact for the local economy and small businesses is going to be night and day from where it is now. And really just put Fraser on the map for, hey, I know this is a bad word and we hear it a lot, but it's kind of a drive through town right now. This is a reason that people will stop, visit, park their car, and spend some money. So that's the high level. I don't want to get too in the weeds in the numbers unless people want to, and then I'm more than happy to. I know I'm seeing a lot of flashing hands come up. So I'll probably stop here, answer some questions, and then we can see kind of tailor this on what people want to see, what makes sense, and we can go from there.
I have a question. So you said that it'll, people are going to come to Fraser, come to these events, and then go get a drink or food. That's assuming that you don't have food or drink at the event, correct?
It's assuming both, and that's something that we see um, all the time at these things. Is that we'll probably, and Steve, I think we can go in the plans if we want. We have a plan for a bar, no commercial kitchen. So there will be drinks and light food served at a lot of these events. That being said, what happens a lot of times is you still go in and you're still uh, buying a drink before, buying dinner after, and it's really designed for that. So that's the thought uh, going forward. And just a heads up, I don't know who the administrator is on this meeting. I think something was hacked here.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, sorry. I hope that answered the question.
Could I add? One of the things I was keen to find is some external validation of that thesis. I went and I did a lot of homework, and I eventually found a consortium of public art centers across the United States who, for the past 15 years, have been doing every 3 years a study on the economic impact on their communities of their center. They have a long history of numbers about what people spend outside of their ticket
Sure.
and in the facility. And the last study was, I think, a year and a half ago. And the average person who bought a ticket for a community art center spent $38 in addition to the money they spent at the event. And if they came from outside the county, which I think a higher percentage of our visitors would be than a typical center, they actually spent closer to 60. Now, that includes lodging, that includes food, that includes, gas at the gas station, and we can share that data, but that's
Yeah.
behind this.
So then, I think something we do with the Winter Park Film Festival is we try to make sure that the liquor is provided by local breweries, local distilleries, things like that, just so that we keep the marketing within the town, promotion within the town, not like let's go to Fat Tire and get, massive donations. Is that sort of a model for you guys as well?
So I'll answer that one because I've thought about that. One of the realities in these art centers is about 43% of your revenue on an average basis across the country comes from your bar. And that is drinks before the event and at the intermission. So we will have a bar in the center. If we don't, we will not be
So
economically
you'll
viable.
have your own liquor license.
Let me finish. We will likely need a liquor license to do that. We are very open to partnering with local breweries, distilleries, et cetera, to either give them exclusive rights as long as we can still, some sort of mutual profit from that.
Mhm.
And it will be our bias to do, that with a local emphasis. But we will need to make revenue from that in order to pay the bills.
I understand that. Cool.
Other questions?
Go ahead,
The
Abby.
event number is 60. That's just performances. what Kevin will also show you is we are anticipating weddings, trade shows, etc., that would help us pay the bills. And in many of those cases, they would require catering, which to Park's question, we will not have a kitchen. So we will have a catering kitchen that would all be relying on the local community.
Have you looked into the numbers of Headwaters event center up there?
I was gonna,
I've tried.
It's tough, yeah.
So the answer is no, but not for lack of effort.
Okay.
I was gonna chime in
Yeah.
about Headwaters, being that I did a large volume of events there this year, and being in the wedding industry for quite some time. I feel like I look at your number for 30 and just off the cuff for 30 weddings. I feel like that's not as conservative as what Headwaters has witnessed. Um, I was like, how come you don't have more weddings there? So, I mean, if that is your pitch and that's your goal, I'm not saying it's not attainable because there's a large volume of weddings here. I would say to probably go to 15 might feel better on stress and logistics in the beginning. Just because it is a different clientele and there's a lot of moving parts. So just my heads up on that, looking at a more conservative number, because it is a limited time of the year, right? So if you cater to 30 weddings, you're going to be eliminating other opportunities that you might see as a higher priority for investing like in the community and culture, if that makes sense. Because winter weddings aren't easy per se. And then my other tidbit was Headwaters just started a local beer and beverage bar package. And this was the first summer that they offered it. And it's really great. So it has like all the offerings from the local community in that package. So I do believe that this was their first summer doing that. It's not necessarily cheaper, but it's just like a variety of everything you can find locally. And not that you need to hear it, but I do think that spend for before and after is pretty much on the spot for how much I see my clients spend in the community. So that's really cool.
Oh, that's really helpful because we're taking some of that at faith. So you think that's a reasonable number?
I do. I mean, and if you look to me, I look at per family unit per se, and they're gonna spend that in lodging alone.
Yep.
And then they're gonna spend it on Home James. Really, to be honest, I feel like Home James and Grand Mountain Transit, they're gonna spend that in vending, in vendors that most planners like encourage our clients to use that to just get here.
Cool.
And
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I think that's super helpful that as we hone in on some of these numbers, it'll be great to get your take, Abby, because I did reach out to the Headwaters Center as well and kind of got your feedback too, that they were like, weddings are probably lighter. I think they said that there's like 16 weeks of opportunistic weddings.
yeah,
And then winter weddings, you're probably not going to get as much.
I mean,
go ahead,
there's
sorry.
there is a value to the winter weddings. Like I just chose to start doing winter weddings because why not when you look at the P&L for that short season. So doing like one winter wedding a month, ideal because you can make 15,000 in a short period because not many people will be able to accommodate a winter wedding. So if you are able to do the build out to support that, it could be a really easy, like low hanging fruit revenue that you're able to pitch to people because there's, like I said, there's not many places that can do an indoor winter wedding.
Definitely. And one thing to add in that wedding corporate bucket is looking at just the amount of space for corporate events in Winter Park Fraser right now. There's not much. So seeing if we could capture more, and I know Headwaters is probably a great example of corporate retreat, offsite, whatever it might be in the winter. And I think having the flexibility designed into the arts center to do that will be great. But yeah, that's a number that I think was a little bit of a shot in the dark right now and is a super important number.
Cool. Good job, you guys. It looks great.
Cool. Just to punctuate that, I've been to the arts campus at Willits, which is what you saw earlier in Basalt, 4 times for various reasons to benchmark this stuff. all 4 times they were hosting a corporate event, which really surprised me. I had no idea. And in exploring that, that is a significant portion of their utilization. They love it because most of those are during the day, and it doesn't preclude them from doing cultural events at night.
What's the, I guess, perfect world, what's your guys' timeline on this and how does that coincide with some of the hospitality delivery, like Koval's delivery and then potentially Clark's? Because I think those are kind of must-haves for
Yeah,
that.
bluntly,
sort of
I'm not
push.
paying any attention to
Yeah, to
their
theirs.
timelines.
Yeah, but
We're hoping, knock on wood, we're hoping that we have enough assets accumulated. So, and this is a guess, folks, but we've doubled our assets every year. If that were to continue by the summer of 27 into that fall, we would conceivably have enough money to either break ground or be doing it in the subsequent spring.
so that plenty of time
Yeah.
for those to come online.
Yep.
Yeah, and Greg, one thing there too, which is I think really cool, is if you look at Cobal's delivery, Clark's delivery of hotels, and I think Cobal's planning on breaking ground here in spring.
Yeah,
The direct path from their hotels to where this art center would be goes through almost every local business in Fraser. And that's, I think, a little bit by design, a little bit by luck. But what that does is if you're staying at the new, I can't remember what brand Cobal's hotel is going to be, and you're coming here, whether car, bike, or walking, you're going to be passing I think I counted last time 12 or 13 local businesses in your way here. And I mean, my guess is you're stopping almost every time on the way in or way out. So those are linchpins, and also in Fraser proper. So you get the lodging tax. But yeah, I think it's super important to be able to feed this beast with hotel rooms and hospitality.
yeah.
I'll just add real quick, later in the agenda, we're actually talking about the hotel on the
good.
rendezvous side.
Good. Two bits of information. Katie here asked quietly how many people would fit in there. If you look at that box, right? Oh, go ahead and scroll back up to the view. Yeah,
Sure.
stop. That where his cursor is, that's the performing arts venue. It would be a 200-person flexible room. So we could hold small events with several dozen by shrinking the room, or we could hold up to 200, probably even more if we took all the chairs out, like a DJ or something like that. And then secondly, one of the things that we've felt was important from day one, somewhat to Park's question, is when we hold events, we'd like to have partnerships with Fraser-based businesses in the DDA, whether it be to offer drink specials, meal specials, et cetera. We would co-promote those, much in the same way we're doing it with the train. And Kevin, if you might want to mention a little bit about the assumption behind the sales tax and the lodging tax, because we are a not-for-profit, so it may not be intuitive for everybody to see those 2 line items on your assumptions.
Totally. The way we calculated those, and I'll switch back here, is looking at ancillary spend in the community and looking at that sales tax. So let me just get this. And so, excuse me, one of the things that if you're looking at economic impact from events, any of this, and then sales tax, this sales tax and lodging tax is based on people coming and visiting and then going and spending money elsewhere, or purchasing something where we would have to pay sales tax. So, Steve, I think I did a little research, and like if we're selling art supplies in the art center and someone buys a paintbrush, they're going to be paying sales tax on that, and that goes to Fraser. And that is based on so sales tax is also based on Fraser numbers. This economic impact is based on the assumptions, like we said. So I can get in the weeds on this, on the exact equations, but it's all weighted based on historicals. One thing we used here, I used to work in the hotel development industry, and I keep using this term ancillary spend, and I realize most people probably don't know what that means. I barely know what it means, and I've spent 20 something years doing it. Um, what hotels look at when they come in is, yes, and you guys have this on your agenda. Yes, they come in and they get people there and they spend $200 a night on a room. But the way that a hotel is judged in the community is, where do people spend their dollars while they're there? And so if I come into the Homewood Suites in Fraser and I'm staying for 3 nights, a metric everyone uses is, okay, if they're spending $200 a night at the hotel, they usually spend about 50% of ADR, average daily rate, on businesses around that. So quick metric would say, if you're spending $200 a night, you're spending $100 a day at local restaurants, bars, activities. And that's probably light for a mountain town. It's probably closer to 65 would be my guess. The art center has a similar effect to a hotel. And you take a person who maybe takes the train up for a day. And so if they're, or drives up and is coming in to see a show, to do something at the art center, and spending $50 at the art center, they're probably spending, my guess would be, another 50 or whatever it might be around, because they're not just going in and out. And that's what we're trying to capture here.
Was the Arts Center going to use any of its revenue to create its own kind of like art grants to send back into the community for, town beautification or anything like that?
Well, we'll be a member of the DDA, so we'll be funding it, some of those things through that. And then secondly, to the extent of our means, yes, I would love to be in a position. I doubt if this will be in the first few years, but I would love to be in a position where, between our revenues and our fundraising, we have the wherewithal to do local scholarships, but also then make contributions of that type. So
Like murals,
intent would be there.
stuff like that.
We're a not-for-profit, so we're not trying to do anything but pay our employees, and then the rest of the money can either be reinvested or used for that manner.
Cool.
Pay off your
Yeah,
debt.
and parks, I would even
That's a big.
Yeah, because we will. I mean, that timeline I mentioned earlier would, to Katie's point, would probably mean a $4 to $5 million bond issuance, which we're already, set up for, but we need to have about $6 million before we do that. And then
Parks, I would go a step further there and say the lower hanging fruit and what other art centers have done historically is give back with space, and then having the space. And so, for example, the film festival, if you said, hey, I want to host a VIP thing on one of the mezzanine levels, where we can ask for donations for the film festival, that's somewhere where it would be an easy place for the art center to give back and partner with the local community.
Yeah, and I guess also I'm saying, like, for local artists, such as painters or sculptors or, whatever, glass blowers, are you guys going to have like monthly showings, like museum type showings?
So, well, yeah, I mean, there's a gallery built into the
Gallery.
center, if you recall.
Yeah, that's
That
right.
would be a place for ongoing sales, and our priority will be Fraser Valley artists. And we have 50 artist members right now who are already benefiting from discounted rates for things like the Alpine Art of Air, Plein Air, our holiday market, et cetera. So we're already doing that.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is because you guys said that people coming through Fraser, it'll be like this attraction to stop. But then I'm thinking, if there's not an event going on that day, what else is attracting them in that day? Yeah. So,
and if you remember his model up there, we have classes, weddings, corporate events.
Sure.
The goal is, while there might be 60 performances, there would be people in the building well over 250 days a year.
Okay.
Because of those classes.
Right.
And
5 days a
gallery.
week. Yeah. Perfect.
The other thing that isn't in the town of Fraser income, or the above model, really, is any impact this would have on employment outside of the center. So when you saw that growth in Basalt, you could see all those businesses that were around it. We didn't factor in any, so to speak, credit for that employment growth.
So the art center came first there. And I love
it was
Basalt.
very early.
Basalt's cool. Yeah. It's a cool
It's
spot.
a slightly different model
Yeah.
than we've got here. The developer threw some money in, but that way that whole area was set up, it's very similar in that a portion of the proceeds from every real estate transaction that took place helped benefit the building of the center. So they got it up pretty quick.
I think from like the private developer point of view too, knowing an art center's very likely to come helps kind of encourage confidence and further investment, like I keep using Strom as an example of those 4 townhomes back there with the small bakery. It's so hard to take a real, big swing on retail or something big in the commercial side of things without, some wind in your
Yeah.
sails, and an art center certainly would be that.
Mm-hmm.
Would that help you with selling?
It
to
helped
hospitality?
my own internal fortitude
Yeah.
to do something like that. But it would definitely, yeah, I mean, the hospitality project we have envisioned for a few years down the line, like that would make that a no-brainer because it's 500 feet away.
Yeah.
And us delivering a 30,000 square foot hospitality project versus 30,000 square feet of apartments or condos is much more beneficial to the town from a sales tax perspective. So yeah, I think it encourages developers to take on kind of more commercial stuff because of the benefits of it. So
I do want to make, oh, sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to
Sorry,
interrupt.
go
I
ahead.
thought you were done. Oh, I do want to, we have a ton of stuff to do. So if there's nothing more, let's wrap this topic
Mhm.
up. We can move forward.
Yeah, Kevin, anything else that you thought was essential to cover? I see you've got, looks like Silverthorne called up.
Yeah, I was just answering Park's question with Silverthorne as an example. There's a gallery space that's open. I think it's 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. or 6 p.m. during days. So you see people going in and out just to the gallery, and it's kind of a ongoing thing. And then rope that in with classes events. The goal here is to be a 6-7 day a week thing that people are coming to visit, and a kind of an iconic place in town, similar to what Silverthorne did.
Yeah, like when I was in Moab last week, I went into their art center. It was kind of cool. They had a little gallery.
Yep.
But it wasn't very interactive. And I'll just
Yep.
put that out there that we could do a better job.
I think so.
Okay,
And we
cool.
have space dedicated on the first floor in the plans for
Awesome.
a substantial gallery.
Awesome. Well, that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions that anyone has if they go through that model and want to talk. I can send out the full model when it gets a little more polished, but appreciate y'all taking the time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you for all
Kevin.
that work.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, everyone.
Great job, guys.
Okay, let's moving on to the business enhancement grant. Updates, additional applications and a resolution.
Great. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize if you're getting some Paw Patrol in the background there. I'm home with a sick 5-year-old. Yesterday was a 7-year-old who is happily rotting his braid away while I conduct my meetings. But so business enhancement grants, we presented them to the board. They approved all of the grants that were presented to them in terms of eligible items, with the exception of Solstice Bistro. They had issue with a couple items that were seen as maybe more temporary versus permanent signage. So that was a reduced award. So you do have in your packet the resolution once it was edited with those changes to show the different awards that were made. They did move forward with Camber without the water heater. I think they kind of saw similar issues that the committee had with that sort of thing having specifically been excluded, even though the ADA argument was maybe there. So there is still some money left. We are still accepting some applications, and I'll go through the ones that we've received, which are also in your packet in just a second. The board did have a pretty lively discussion. I think there will likely be some changes to the program moving forward. One of the questions did come up of why the DDA wasn't administering this program and having it just sit with the DDA. Which we had previously discussed with the board, but we want businesses outside of the DDA to be eligible as well, even though right now the bulk of our businesses are within DDA boundaries. The DDA currently doesn't have the budget to really support a robust business enhancement grant type program at this stage. but that may be something that is coming. We'll see what the board decides. I wanted to kind of let some of the other applications trickle in, so we had a fuller picture of the different business enhancements that were going to be used and, you know, taking advantage of the grants before the board really dived into that discussion. Some things we kind of knew in terms of maybe honing in on some of the criteria in terms of who's eligible. I feel pretty comfortable that what was awarded fits within the eligibility and the intention of the grant. But I think there can be some tightening of language, and the board may want to see a little bit of changes to some of those criterias. So I will keep you posted on the board meeting when that will be discussed, if anybody wants to be present to weigh in on that discussion. I'm working still through, right after this happened with spring break and just playing catch up. So working through kind of reaching out to all the businesses and firming up contracts that we're going to ask each of the businesses to sign, so they have clarity on all the expectations and some of the things that we haven't maybe been as tight with as we should have in the past. And so just making sure everybody understands the scope of the work, what the business is committing to, and really trying to make sure that businesses are completing the work in 2025 and submitting for reimbursement in 2025. Unless, you know, there's a justification for an extension that's formally requested and approved. So the additional applications that have come in, one is for Fraser Beer Co. to put an ADA ramp into the front of their building, and they're looking to do that once the town completes the sidewalk in front of their building. And I believe that is slotted, I think, for June, but definitely sometime this summer. So the committee has recommended approving that. That would be for a grant award of up to $6,000, with the 50% match from the business of $6,000. TAC Enterprises, which owns the building on Highway 40 and Eisenhower across from the Shell station. It's got the snowmobile and the Step in Time and a couple small little local businesses in there. They're looking to update their siding, do some repairs, and repaint the building. So the committee's also approved that award. That award is for just over $3,600, with, again, an equal match. We also got an application from Fox Run Apartments. They're looking to replace all of their siding. It's an expensive project. The committee determined that that was not eligible, that this grant is not really intended for residential properties. Again, this is somewhere where I think we can tighten up this language and make that more clear, but really felt that if this was up to be approved, that just opens the door for, you know, people running Airbnbs, somebody selling new homes, all sorts of things to kind of ask for money to go towards that. So not that housing isn't valuable, but did not seem to fit within the parameters of the grant.
Sarah, do you have a copy of the documents for TAC Enterprises? I can't access it from the agenda. It just
Did it not? The link,
It
sorry, I
didn't.
added those Monday morning, so I apologize.
I have them if not.
Okay. Or if you can just
What
pull
was
them.
that?
I think
Just pull up the TAC Enterprises documents.
we can link the application, but we can't see the documents.
Gotcha. I can pull those up unless you have them handy, Lori. But it'll just take me a second.
I don't know if I can share my screen. I'm not connected to anything, but I can send them out.
Yeah, if you want to send them, that would be great. And then I will try to share my screen real quick too and show.
Hey, Sarah, a reminder, who's on that committee?
It's me and-
Great question. So
I
it's
know.
myself and Sarah Wick in terms of town staff, Lori, Bill Palmer, and then Diane Butler from Grand County Economic Development.
Perfect, thank you.
Question
Yeah.
for,
So and I'll just clarify too, we met formally to review the first batch of applications, and now as they're rolling in, and again, it was set up that they could continue to be reviewed on a rolling basis while funding remained. I'm sending them out through email, and people are weighing in if something comes up that needs more discussion. we can meet, but I don't know that it'll be necessary. Abby, you go ahead?
Yeah, I had a question. If the lodging, if people that are requesting assistance, and correct me if I heard this wrong, if their lodging is located within the DDA boundaries, I don't know, I feel like,
It's a different bucket of money, right?
is it? I
the
feel like
economic
it's a
incentive,
great, like to me, I feel like if there's a place for a wedding guest to stay that's in the Fraser boundaries, that's a business.
That's where the wording gets a little tricky because technically this grant is not DDA specific. So
Oh,
you have to use DDA funding, which we don't.
Yep, and again, this is the conversation we've had of we can look at ways that the DDA can supplement potential programs.
That's why it's confusing. So
And I think we need to tighten up the wording too. I mean, one of the requests that fell into a gray area that was approved was Grandkids Learning Center. Obviously it was seen as a huge public benefit, providing childcare. It contributes to economic development in terms of providing childcare for the workforce. In my mind, it is a nonprofit, but it just as easily could be a for-profit early childhood education center. I think you could make some potentially similar arguments for housing, but I think it really is just another category. And so I think we do need to tighten up that language moving forward. The idea behind the grant is really to increase the curb appeal of Fraser's kind of commercial district and businesses, make businesses more inviting, make our downtown area more inviting.
okay.
And
That makes
as Lori
sense.
said, it is town-wide versus specific to the DDA. But we've involved the DDA because of the role that the DDA does play in terms of your relationship with local businesses and trying to help promote it and just kind of weighing in from an economic development standpoint on the value of the grants and the different applications.
Thanks for clarifying that. I agree with all of it. That makes sense. Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so the documents for the building here really are just photos of the current building and a brief letter, and then he's got the estimates here for the painting and trim repair. So any other questions or other comments? So we'll be presenting these to the Board of Trustees at the April 16th meeting. I have heard that Birdie Lounge and Simple Coffee are looking to submit something for awnings. So I'll keep you posted if we get that in.
Greg had a question.
My question was, the corn dog company got awarded more than the project amount. What was the reason for that? On the resolution, it says they got awarded 8,500 and the project amount was 50.
Hold on, let me look at the resolution.
Oh yeah, that's a typo.
Thought I had fixed
That's a
that.
typo.
That is a
Okay.
typo.
But backward.
Yeah. And then one question for Troy, since these are town funds and not DDA funds, could the DDA even administer these and be the deciding group since we're kind of fiduciarily responsible? My understanding is we're fiduciaries for the businesses and everything within the DDA to then be opining and dispersing funds on applications from outside the DDA. Does that put us in any hot water to like remove the town board from having to deal with this?
Well, I don't think so off the top of my head, and I would just ask that it be memorialized in agreement between the DDA and town. And that way there's a clear delineation of the function that the DDA is serving, right? It's not the DDA funds, but they're administering it. And if that's memorialized, I don't see any issues off the top of my head.
Okay.
In actuality.
And I really wouldn't even say the DDA is administering it. We formed a committee with DDA members. Diane Butler in part was meant to be an outside entity, in addition to town staff. I think in the future, it'd be great to have a business owner from outside of the DDA as well. But again, since so many of our businesses are within the DDA, we failed to find somebody willing to do that. A large reason to involve the DDA was to help give the DDA more of a presence kind of early on, as we don't have as many of our own funds to work with, and with the idea that if we are out there doing different things with the local businesses to really try to help promote this to those local businesses. Did you have any other comments there, Troy?
No, I was just going to say, yeah, for me, you know, I certainly think the DDA, to Sarah's last points, make the most sense to me in terms of, you know, building the exposure of the DDA. And, you know, for what it's worth, I do think the DDA should be involved, certainly when its own funds are at hand. But in this case, I think, you know, the town and DDA should be aligned in a common goal, or are aligned in a common goal.
So just a clarification request that this resolution 250309 comes back amended to show the correct amounts for Colorado corn dog. Because it's in the,
This is the one from.
Yes.
yeah, that's for the, yeah, that's the
trustees.
town board.
Yeah.
We could do that. Bring that back.
The
We could
trust-
do
yeah.
it in the consent agenda. But
It's funny, Katie, I updated those amounts for solstice with the intention of switching them because they were wrong. They were in the
Yeah,
wrong place
that's
for our
all.
board meeting, and somehow I updated the amounts but didn't switch them.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we'll get that
But
taken care of, but I
for
just
the
included that.
record, it's good to have the right numbers in there.
Yeah, and I just included those for you all just as reference of what was awarded previously.
No, it's great. Thank you. Easy to do. I do that stuff all the time.
Any other thoughts? Otherwise, we can jump into the economic incentives for the hotel.
Sarah, just a quick comment, and this really has nothing to do with this particular grant. I just noticed the need, and I saw Fox Run on here. Every day I drive home on County Road 8, and I see numerous young people burdened with their grocery bags, getting off the bus and then walking up that hill. They have to walk, particularly in the winter, in the road because there is no other alternative for them. My wife and I often give them rides. And it would be great if the community could some way find the wherewithal, whether through something like this, to provide a walking path from the bus area up that hill to Fox Run, where a number of our young people in our community live, particularly while they're here working in the winter.
I like the idea that Parks had a while back about the local Fraser line and adding, like petitioning the transit authority to do a, you know, like ring the bell and it'll stop at the intersections for that local traffic, because I agree that every time I see people with groceries walking in the winter, a lot of them don't live in, you know, 500 feet. It's, you know, half mile, 3/4 mile, and that's brutal.
Yeah, it's hard.
I'd like to mention that Fox Run actually does have a bus stop on Wapiti.
Is it up there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
On
is
the
actually
blacktop.
their bus stop to
Yeah.
walk to the backside, through the backside of that property, so they don't have to get off right there by that development. I forget the name of that, those condos. So they do have another option. They probably have missed it, is my guess.
Ah, okay.
They have come down, and that's the next, the one down at the bottom on County Road
Yep.
8 is 2 stops after their actual stop.
So the 1-4 Fox Run is up top, so they're
Correct.
walking
Yeah.
downhill. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Used to be the back entrance, I think, then they closed it off like, yeah, you've been here long enough to.
Yeah, I actually ride
We
my
used to
bike
drive
through
down
that
there,
gate.
yeah, we used to drive down that.
Yep.
But it's also not the easiest, so it'd be cool if there was a way for the bus to stop in front of it.
I think we're ready to move on to.
Yeah.
the Marriott.
Let's do that.
Great. And I am largely presenting this to the DDA as kind of an FYI in relation to just economic development and other things that are happening. The Board of Trustees is slotted to receive this economic incentive request at their April 16th meeting. So if the DDA does have any, thoughts or opinions on it in regards to economic development that they would like to share with the board, we can pass this along. But again, just to clarify, there's not really a formal role for the DDA here other than providing input, but wanted to share with you that this economic request was coming in front of the board and what it kind of looked like, and just update you on this hotel project. Because obviously increased lodging provides some opportunities for the community and our local businesses. So within your packet, you do have their application. There's a letter from Colbell and Welsh Dupart kind of explaining the project and why they are seeking economic incentives. They are looking for a decent amount of economic incentives. They have provided the justification for that in large part based on looking at the RevPAR, which is a term I recently learned, the historical revenue per available room for comparable markets. And really showing that there is a Winter Park average discount based on their numbers of about 36% on average from some comparable markets, but that their costs are going to be quite similar. So they've asked for some different fee waivers up front. They've also asked for a sales tax rebate, 0% the first year, and then a 75% rebate. So this would be the 4% municipal sales tax on operations year 2 through year 6. Operations year 7 through year 11, a 50% rebate, and then down to a 25% rebate years 12 through 16. So the town board approved a policy last fall that was really focused on just providing an open invitation to new commercial development, new businesses to request economic incentives. In the past, the town had a more structured, kind of set, this is what you get. And just in looking at what other communities are doing and what seems to be successful, and in order to be able to kind of prioritize businesses that Fraser really feels are a good fit for the vision of Fraser and what will really serve our economic development. As much as we love our breweries, maybe we don't need to incentivize another brewery right now. But really hold on, Elliot. But really just trying to focus on what Fraser's priorities are and where it seems to make sense. So looking at what businesses have seemed to have solid business plans and can fit in well with Fraser. So this will be going in front of the board. You do have all the materials in your packet, and happy to pull those up and look at them if the DDA feels it would be helpful to discuss that. Or we can move on. Any thoughts? And Antoinette, I have lost the camera, so I'm just seeing the logo versus the board.
I've reviewed these.
Thank you.
So if anyone else wants to go through them.
Do you think the board will make a decision based on?
And if you guys can make sure you're speaking into your microphones, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I'm just curious to what extent the board will make the decision based on the sales tax and lodging taxes this will bring into the town versus ancillary funds. And just based on its location, intuitively one might guess that the majority of restaurant spending will probably be in Winter Park, not Fraser, because of its very close proximity.
Grand Park,
What's that?
Grand Park, once they get one of it, they have some restaurants there too.
And it's moving quickly. They have windows.
Yeah,
I saw that.
yeah.
Yeah, Grand
so
Park would be
I'm
Fraser.
optimistic.
Grand Park would be Fraser sales tax.
Yeah.
revenue, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I agree. It'd
Yeah.
probably be great for Grand Park.
Yeah, because
But-
it'll be
But
walkable.
one might guess just based on experience of talking to tourists,
Mhm.
the proximity is very close to Winter Park and not
You-
the restaurants in Fraser. It's just something to
You
ponder.
are right about that, but at the same time, if you go and stay in downtown Denver, you travel all over the place there. I think that's up to us. That's up to us for our marketing if we can get more lodging that's right on Highway 40, it's an easy access down here to get on the bus and come down and see you and check out the Birdie Lounge. And those are unique businesses. They do not have that Winter Park, and we need more unique businesses. So let's petition and get that going and promote.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
Totally
would be.
agree with
We need it.
necessary.
We need to get out of the Airbnb market. That's a great way to do it. Get some money in the DDA.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I'm in favor of developer incentives. I think they're investments in what you want to see come. So it's just a matter of this aligns with what the town wants to see. And I think it's needed in Fraser, Winter Park, the whole valley, you know, more
Mhm.
hotel keys. And then I guess just going back to what Sarah said, I was unaware that there was just kind of an open invitation. Is that kind of the board's outlook, you know, when there won't be a new economic incentive policy,
Oh, yeah.
just come and ask for what you want? Because,
Never say never.
yeah,
You
because
just never
I think
know.
it's fine, but then, you know,
It's hard,
it'll be, hey, I want 25-year sales, you know,
right?
it's gonna, if you're gonna negotiate, you're gonna start in a very advantageous point. And so that balancing act will be maybe, I think there's a lot more kind of cunning that goes into that
Yeah,
negotiation. So
for
that's
me,
just one little
intuitively
fault
too,
of
I'd
not
like to
having
know
one.
what we've done in the past.
What's that?
For me, just as a perspective, like to know what we've done in the past,
Yeah.
you know, and, but
Yeah, let me go ahead and pull up our webpage. Yeah, Greg, this was passed back last fall. We had initially brought a package to the board earlier in the year that was a more specific package.
I remember that.
That was voted down. People wanted some more information, and so we kind of did some more digging. I mean, I think the tricky part is I don't know that there's a magic uniform number that would be applicable to all businesses across the board.
Totally.
Um,
And I think what my recollection of the conversation when the new proposal was brought to the board was that the town didn't have the legal authority to do some of the developer incentives as it would for business owner incentives. So,
And that remains true. And so the Fraser business incentives right now, it is just an open invitation. Part of me was like, why wouldn't everybody then ask? And do we need to be giving it to everybody? And like you said, why aren't they all going to shoot for the moon? And you know, what do you kind of do with that? But I think that's for better or for worse. And I would, you know, Troy might have some thoughts on this. Just what largely happens. And then if the community really wants a target, you go to bat to get that target. If the community doesn't want the target, then you're not offering incentives to the target, but you're offering the incentives to the mom and pop shop that, you know, might struggle, but the community really wants to see. So in terms of your question though, about developers, that remains true. Our current legal understanding from our town's legal representative is that we can provide tax rebates and different things to businesses themselves, but we can't offer that same level of incentive to commercial developers. In the case of the hotel, the company developing it, you know, is also going to be running the hotel, so we're able to offer that.
well, Marriott
So
will
we
be running the
did.
hotel.
I'm sorry.
Marriott will be running the hotel.
Well, it's a franchise. So WDK Hotel that is developing it is running it. And so we
Doesn't
have
the
left the door
hotel
open
model
to-
usually somebody owns it and then they usually hire Marriott to run it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
Marriott owns very few of the hotels that have their name on it.
so that's who's the incentive going to? And
Right.
I think that legal opinion should be looked into more too, because I've heard counsel the other way about it, and I think you need to have the flexibility to incentivize. And if it goes to the businesses, fine, but there are things that can incentivize the developer, and that's who needs the incentive to build it. You know, you can incentivize the business all you want, but if the developer can't realize any of that, you know, you need the money to start, not the back half. So
Mhm.
I just think that's worth looking into again, because we've heard conflicting counsel on statutory municipalities' ability to do that.
Well, and if you want to share anything you've received, Greg, we'd be
Sure,
happy to
yeah.
look at that.
I'll pass it over.
I will say, I mean, two different things. And again, this is down the road, and I realize there's developers eager to develop now, and Fraser is eager to have development now. But the town of Fraser is beginning to explore possibly becoming home rule, which would be a process. It wouldn't happen tomorrow, but that would give us potentially more leeway in this area. And then within the DDA boundaries, the DDA does have room to do some things that the town can't do, particularly in terms of tax increment and what we can offer back to developers in that regard.
For sure.
So, so yeah, so that information is up on our website. And then just to kind of show the hotel, it looks quite nice, but again, this is on the Rendezvous side. There's potentially another hotel development coming in on the Grand Park side. The last I heard from them, they weren't super excited to realize that this hotel was coming in. So I'm not sure where that hotel currently stands. But this hotel, I believe, is looking to break ground this summer. Right there next to the bank where that Rendezvous sign currently is located. Any other thoughts?
Well, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's great.
We'll move on to good news. We can't hear you. You're on mute, Sarah.
Your lips are moving, Sarah.
Yeah.
That may be your.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Trying to mute myself and the 5-year-old in the background when I'm not actually speaking. So I did attend 3 of the 4 days of the DCI conference last week in Greeley. I wanted to just kind of share a few thoughts from that while it was fresh in my mind. Troy was also there and is a member of their board. So feel free to jump in with any other thoughts, Troy. But again, I do think DCI does a really nice job with these. And I realize that it's definitely a commitment, but would encourage you all to consider trying to attend, even for part of the conference next year, if you have that availability, or to attend some of their other kind of one-day events sprinkled throughout the year that maybe are a bit less of a commitment. Next year's conference will be in Grand Junction. And again, it's the first week of April. Give me 1 second, folks.
I'll jump in and say that as a board member, I'm certainly self-serving in my commentary on in the game, but it's something we work on really hard, not only in terms of our layout and programming, but we try to keep folks moving and not stationary in rooms all day. But Sarah's right; it's kind of a full day commitment, even for folks like me. Not getting a lot of work done, but getting a lot of great networking done. And I think that's one of the biggest appeals, is you connecting with your peers from other DDAs, even URAs and BIDs, and kind of learning lessons of what worked and what didn't. So I certainly would implore you guys to check it out. And we are able to structure 1 day or 2 day attendance at the in the game, so you don't have to go the whole week. And in fact, this year I thought Friday was particularly special based on the AI conversations that we were having.
Yeah, and they did have some great things you can do with AI. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. I pulled together just a couple quick things from some of the different presentations that I thought really resonated with thinking about Fraser and what we can do, particularly in our early days of the DDA, where we don't have huge chunks of money. It is interesting, some of the DDAs that have been around, and again, a lot of them are in larger areas. They cover larger areas, so they inherently have more money to work with. But we're talking about budgets between $500,000 up to several, $2 or $3 million, which obviously we don't have. But some of the focus was really just on what DDAs can do and on what we can control. One of the presentations I really enjoyed was by a woman, Molly Alexander, who is a consultant. She's based out of Texas. But she talked about this idea of return on emotion. And honestly, I was not super excited about this talk. I feel like I've heard a couple other things like this that just, I didn't feel like I left with concrete actions. And not that this was necessarily concrete actions, but really just thinking about, again, as the role of a DDA and what we can do, that the DDA can be focused on that traditional economic return on investment. And we should be focused on that. So reinvesting in the district and increased tax collection, increased property values, numbers of jobs, businesses, visitors. But she really focuses on this idea of return on emotion. And she broke that down by joy, trust, and a sense of belonging, and these being really important things for a downtown to try to foster, because this gets people coming back and it gets people spending money in our businesses. She shared this quote, and I may have written this slightly wrong, but on a lifetime value basis, emotionally connected customers are more than twice as valuable as highly satisfied customers. And I feel like I'm totally a sucker for this. Like, I went into a super cute bookshop in Greeley. I should have put a picture of it up here. But I know independent bookstores struggle to make it. And they're a business that I always feel inclined to support. But the guy there was super chatty, and he kind of talked to me about their business model. And I went ahead and bought a book that I didn't necessarily need to buy, but I felt this connection to the business and just connection to want to support them. So she focused on really thinking about the vision and the mission that we have and whether or not it sparks joy, fosters trust, and belonging. And she connected this to how retail businesses grow their bottom line, and focused on kind of 5 different steps. Lowering your fixed costs, she said, is really kind of difficult to do, but if you can increase foot traffic, if you can then increase that foot traffic in terms of their conversion rates and making them, buying customers, you can grow their average transaction, and if you can emotionally connect with them. And what I wanted to just highlight here, again, as we think about our role as a DDA and what we can do in these initial years, that the DDA's role is really on helping increase that foot traffic and helping with that emotional connection to the place and to downtown Fraser. That really it's up to the business to focus on their fixed costs, to do that conversion rate piece and grow their average transactions. There may be some ways where we can support and provide some business support, but they're really, in terms of activating the place and emotionally connecting people to the place so that they are coming back and they are return customers and they are spending money in our community. It's that foot traffic and that emotional connection.
I very strongly agree with you. We've talked about this before.
Barry, can you make sure you're speaking into your microphone?
Sorry, I was trying to stretch. I totally agree with what you said, and it goes back to what you said. I think increasing foot traffic is one of the single most important things we can do. With respect to the emotional connection, I actually think that's the business's opportunity.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, and when you guys were having the hotel conversation about I had the same thought, like these hotels, it's going to be easier for people staying there to visit downtown Winter Park than downtown Fraser, or maybe not easier, but that's just going to be the natural inclination, right? Most of them are coming from I-70, they're passing through, it's right there. That it really is our job to give them a reason to come to Fraser and to increase traffic in that direction. And I will say I was compelled to attend this conference in Greeley because I had never been to Greeley. I did not have positive connotations of Greeley, as I think is maybe true with a lot of people, right? It's a place where you got meat packing plants and you get that smell when the weather changes down in the Front Range. So I was quite intrigued to visit Greeley based on being at a previous DCI conference and listening to people from Greeley's DDA speak about Greeley. And I snapped a picture of this little, these banners that they had throughout town, Discover the Draw, because I felt like I was compelled by that, right? Like what was going on in Greeley. And so again, giving people that kind of emotional connection and giving them something to come to Fraser for. And so some other kind of key takeaways just from some of the different speakers and kind of building on that idea is really focusing on what we can control. I was talking with one of the staff members for Greeley DDA, and I was like, tell me, what does your DDA do? Like, what should we be doing? And he did a lot with their social media, and I think would be a good person for us to kind of follow because he did have some great photos and really just spoke to photos that really he felt spoke to Greeley. And he really just talked about, celebrating who we are and finding who we are. And I thought that resonated for Fraser. And another speaker that was focused on branding and social media, kind of in a similar line of thinking, talked about really finding that tagline that celebrates why we're unique, but will speak to different audiences, that it shouldn't be we're always putting on different hats, trying to satisfy different audiences, but trying to, find that one tagline that can speak to different people, whether they be interested in hiking, biking, the arts, breweries, distilleries, what it is about Fraser that can speak to multiple audiences, and kind of focusing in on that. So I don't know if there's any questions. I will end with the Fraser Downtown Development Authority did receive an award for our DCI downtown plan of development. So congrats to us. I think the focus really was on the fact that the town of Fraser put together this effort to form the DDA pretty quickly in terms of how these things go. And I will largely credit Michael Brack and really kind of pushing things forward where I would have been like, I think we need to move a little slower with this. But really kind of just put it together fairly quickly for the election. I think we did our due diligence. We had an exploratory committee that really kind of looked at whether or not the DDA would make sense for Fraser, and they did recommend to the board to move forward with it, and the board did take that action, but then really putting a plan of development together quickly and trying to form a plan that would be broad enough that we could fine tune it and hone in on different things that we needed to at different points in time, but getting that in place so we could start building up that increment and moving forward with action versus just focusing on a plan for what could have been a 6, 12, 18-month period, which is, a lot of times what does happen with these processes. Abby, I see you've got your hand up.
Super quick, just want to say that the Grand County Tourism Board, and I do believe whatever wedding association was compiled several years ago, that has recently dissolved. They did do a similar study with the ROE that people that get married here typically return for their anniversaries. So it's a super important clientele to focus on because they do have that ROE like embedded into their time here, because it's like a guaranteed return for anniversary celebrations, children, and it just continues to build on that, which is just a fun little fact.
Yeah, I think that's great. And you've said that before, and that totally makes sense to me, right? There's that emotional connection to Fraser. And I will say when I'm at these different conferences and just out and about and speak about Fraser, for some people it is totally, that drive through town. But for other people, I feel like Fraser just speaks to them, right? They're like, oh, I love Fraser. It was the director of the Arvada DDA was actually like self-proclaimed Fraser fanboy. I need to tell Sarah Wick this, but he called her up and was like, we want to model a mural fest after you. And Arvada has tried to do that. And he's like, we have not succeeded in pulling off what Fraser has. So I think the more, we can tap into that emotional connection, especially for an itty bitty place like Fraser, we're not Winter Park, we're definitely not Breckenridge or Aspen, right? There's something different about Fraser, and I think it's important that we we tap into that versus trying to just emulate what other mountain towns might be doing that aren't us.
And the cool thing about Arvada is they actually have been, cooperative and open and a partner in that. Unlike Frisco, who basically ripped off Fire and Ice, changed the name, and never said a word, and held it on the same day.
I was just
Huh.
gonna say how cool Arvada is.
Yeah.
With Fraser.
I agree.
They even have like chairlifts and benches and chairlift benches and stuff in
Yep.
different restaurants up there. Like they really like our community up here. Something to think about too is that in Steamboat, most people that stay up by the resort travel all the way down into Steamboat to go eat and, mix.
Well,
So I
and,
think
and to further that point, Parks,
Big
when
drive.
I was at the resort thing last fall,
Mhm.
where they were talking about the future plans, Alterra, at least at that time, articulated the desire to investigate building a parking structure someplace along Arvada and the trail
Mhm.
in the railroad there that would enable people to get on the train,
Yep.
come up to Winter Park, go all the way to Steamboat. That's huge. I mean, that'd be just a game changer.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's massive. Oh, hi, you heard your name, huh?
Sarah, I was just telling them that I was hanging out with Arvada folks in Greeley last week, and they were giving you a shout out for your Mural Fest and their attempts to emulate the Mural Fest, but feeling like they have not quite been able to capture the essence of what Fraser does.
Well, that's great
So
to hear. Of
kudos.
course, it's not me, it's the Public Arts Committee of, so shout out to them actually and the town board always.
And I talked to Arvada several years ago.
Mhm.
Please make it clear that we're always happy to help them build their.
Right, and they had initially reached out to me a few years ago and were asking questions about it and like how we built the easels and stuff like that. So we gave them some pointers, and I always think that, somebody that copies you is just flattery. So I don't mind that at all.
Yeah.
Imitation is
I
the
was
best
telling
form of
them, I believe
flattery.
his name was Joe. I'm pretty sure it was Joe, but he's a self-proclaimed Fraser fanboy.
Well, we love to hear
Yeah,
that.
Joe.
We love to hear that.
So those are just some of my kind of takeaways and things that spoke to me that I wanted to share. Because I think it is important that we're kind of continuously thinking about our role and just really what we want to celebrate and how we can kind of move Fraser forward. So I did ask Sarah to join us to talk about signage and district enhancements. Real quick before we do that, the next item was the spring DDA hour. So we did a coffee hour at Simple Coffee back in February. I am tentatively kind of just thinking about maybe trying to do something the last week of May, maybe in the evening at a brewery. So just wanted to get thoughts, if people are good with that, if there's particular weeks that work better. We don't need everybody there, but I think it's great to have kind of a solid DDA board member presence. We can really promote it as an opportunity for local business owners to connect both with each other, but also with the DDA board and kind of share their visions for Fraser. I'm thinking that if we shoot for the last week of May, we can kind of maybe do like a summer kickoff, and hopefully it's warm enough that maybe nice enough we can be on a patio. Maybe like a Wednesday or Thursday evening. Any thoughts?
Thursday.
Thursday. Okay.
Wednesday's
In
commission
terms of
Yeah, we do.
time, I would love recommendations on if we shoot for a
or Tuesday?
4 to 5, or what you think would be good for getting people to come by.
Probably after 5 o'clock, just to make sure we can get that the post-bird crowd, the teachers, all that stuff. Would be
Yeah.
helpful.
5:15. I don't know.
Thursday, 5 o'clock.
5:30 would be fine.
5.
So, but we're targeting businesses in the DDA or just
It's
people that live in the
anybody,
DDA?
yeah.
Anybody? Okay.
Just to learn more about what we're doing. It's about engaging with people, and
Okay.
like we're not just we're doing this because we're using taxes and
want to make sure that they understand what we're doing. That's everyone.
Yeah.
I would say. Businesses are a plus though.
If we make it like quarter after 5,
Mhm.
in my years of car sales, we learned that if you set an appointment for a quarter, people are more likely to remember it. So
That's funny. Interesting.
Sort of like the speed limit signs that are 12 miles an hour.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we want to do it.
So 5:15 would probably be the best like time to kind of get people like out of work and all that and to wherever it might be. So just my 2 cents.
Okay. We can look at that. I thought about maybe either asking Vicious or Fraser Beer Co. I'm kind of thinking we can hit up coffee, brewery coffee. But for a so we do not appear like we are just favoring board members. Maybe go with the coffee shops and breweries that do not have DDA board members, and then can rotate back to say the roastery and Camber in our future cycles.
Makes sense to me.
All right, great. So we had a request to talk about signage. So just a couple of things to mention before we jump into this conversation. And I think we can talk about other possible options for kind of district enhancements as well. We are, and I feel like with a lot of things, we've just got a lot of things kind of going and moving pieces. So I don't want to keep us constantly in a holding pattern, but as mentioned at the last meeting, we are in the middle of a wayfinding study. Catherine Ross has kind of been leading that effort with the chamber, but it's Fraser, Winter Park, and Winter Park Resort. I asked her if she had an update, and I think she was actually meeting with the consulting team that's putting the report together this morning. But potentially she can maybe come to our May meeting and provide an update. I'm going to circle back with her after she meets with them, but we should have the report fairly soon with kind of some recommendations. And then implementation will be over several stages, but we've also, there's been conversations with the Art Center and the town about potential signage, kind of a welcome to Fraser type signage over the highway. What that might look like. One of the recommendations that had come from the consulting team was that these signs tend to be very expensive. But maybe if there was something right on the border with Fraser and Winter Park, we could share that expense with Winter Park. And so there could be a welcome to Fraser on the one side, depending on the direction you're coming, and a welcome to Winter Park on the other kind of thing. Some folks, the other thing that kind of keeps us in a bit of a holding pattern is CDOT is currently doing a redesign of Highway 40 through town. On the one hand, it might make it easier to push through a sign if we do want to do something on the highway in terms of getting CDOT permission for that. But one of the ideas is a roundabout kind of right by where we're looking to put the bike park in this summer. As that is been earmarked for a future intersection, you know, with like a stoplight. Some people are trying to push for a roundabout with a potential Fraser sign in the middle of that roundabout. The other conversation was if the town is able to get access to do a road behind the Holiday Inn from Safeway to Clayton Court, that could be another spot for a cool kind of welcome to Fraser type or Fraser downtown sign. So those are some conversations that are going on in terms of larger signage efforts. I think the idea for today was to possibly look at some temporary signage that we could look at to highlight things that people feel are important for this summer season, while we wait for this kind of wayfinding to come together, and hopefully can start moving forward with some of that signage in the next year or so. So I asked Sarah to join us. I actually quite liked the Discover the Draw signs in Greeley. And so I was like, what do you think if we propose this to the DDA? And Sarah had actually already designed some of her own that she was looking to do. So serendipitous or not, can share what she is looking at, but then we can also just talk about any ideas that you all have for signage.
So as Sarah said, I was already kind of thinking about some banners in town. We already have, I think it's the Colorado, Fraser, and US flag on the poles throughout town. But I thought something more tourism-y, like our Explore Fraser logo or something like that. But I didn't want to put them on the light or on the light poles on the side of 40. So we have the 3 in the center. And I thought banners that kind of hang from the side of those, because I've seen that done before. Why not utilize that space? I also didn't want to just like start putting a bunch of different flags. Like I think it becomes too much. So Antoinette, if you want to pull up these designs, and we only have 3 of them, so it's not it's not a ton of money to spend to do these. And I focused on the arts, of course, and then outdoor activity, and then also restaurants and beverages. So basically the summer marketing plan for Explore Fraser is going to be directed toward the dual income, no kids market. They are the ones that have the most expendable income and are going to spend that money in town. So basically what we want them to do is come to Fraser, ride bikes, and then go drink. So that it's going to be heavily marketed towards them, and it's going to be mainly mountain biking.
You just
and also-
described my summer lifestyle.
Exactly. I mean, you have kids, but they're older and out of the house. But
Oh, well,
also,
the kids we bring can spend money because they're adults.
Right. Exactly. So it's going to be directed towards mountain biking and also gravel biking, because those people are in that dual income, no kids category as well, and love to spend money.
And one of the really interesting things about avid cyclists is they tend to be a very high economic demographic.
Yes. Can you
So,
shrink those a little bit?
yeah, so with the red ones,
That's just an example of what they're like. It's going to come
Of
off
what it
to
would
the
look
sides.
like.
Mhm.
The-
Yeah. Yeah.
flag itself,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, the minus is at the top middle, if you make them smaller. Yeah, no, up a little bit, where it says number 1 of 4, there's a plus and minus.
Plus and minus.
Oh, no, left. Just
I
left
can
the
pull them
one.
up on my screen too, if that's any easier.
Yeah,
Getting warmer, warmer.
Oh,
Oh, no, a
back.
little further left.
2 more.
There
Right
you
there.
go.
Oh, there we go.
That's
So
all right.
yeah, get them as small as, can you go smaller? Smaller. Okay. So this is the one for the arts. Beverages. And then mountain biking.
Nice.
And I'm always open to ideas. I wanted to keep them pretty simple because you are going to be driving by on the road. So
Yeah, so I really like them, and I think they do a nice job with the brand of the town.
Mhm.
So full stop. The one thing I do think is missing is that event specific opportunity to engage with the heavy traffic on 40.
I thought about that too. I'm like,
Please.
do we do one with arts? And then it says Fraser Mountain Mural Festival, August, whatever.
One of the things I think that would be a great add to this is something like that. If it's in before you get to Safeway spot,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's temporary, that just highlights the next thing coming up,
Mm-hmm.
so that we pull more and more people past Safeway into town, whether it's Mural Festival, Fire and Ice, the bike, whatever, but take advantage of those eyeballs on the highway.
Agreed. I'll get these printed, but then I'll get an extra one for like whatever's next. So for example, it's probably going to be Mural Fest, maybe even Picnic in the Park too.
Right.
I could throw up there.
Because every single one of those is an opportunity to drive foot
Mhm.
traffic, which we all know is going to help all the local businesses
Right.
and eventually self-serving arts events.
And Sarah, so where are you looking? Could you go through one more time where you're looking to put these?
On the median light poles. So there's one by the post office, one by Birdie Lounge and Fisher's in that median, and then is the other one. The other one is by Goranson.
Would there be any place, or are you just curious on thoughts of putting them again with this idea of bringing people past Safeway of as you come into Fraser, but before you get to the downtown to try to get some of that traffic going to Safeway?
There aren't any median light poles.
We'd have to put in a pole
Oh, yeah.
and that median, huh?
Mhm.
Isn't there one on the other side of that?
Yeah, and
intersection?
all the ones we're talking about have crosswalks too. You know,
Mhm.
they have those.
They-
Yeah.
yep, that go
And the
with
good thing about that is people stop,
Mhm.
so
Yeah,
they can maybe
it's
read it,
true.
Yeah, good point. That I didn't even think about.
you know, yeah. People
I-
tend to slow down and stop there.
I've been seeing people blow through those stop signs, and I love this idea there, and I think whatever we can fit legally in the median to
Yep.
get people's eyes and get them to slow down is what
Yeah.
we should do. And I was looking into crosswalk flashers that are capture your attention more. I think that's where, whatever we can legally do to get people to slow down, I think is a great idea.
We have the
Mhm.
flashers on either side, and I know they're gonna put some in the middle too.
Oh, are,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's already
Because
there.
I've
just,
stopped there and people have been in the median and then there's a car in the left-hand lane.
yeah,
And I can't see the person
totally, totally,
in the median.
yeah,
I could see the lights flashing, so that's good, but yeah, it's tricky.
yeah. But I think these are cool.
I think it'll brighten up town a little bit, even though it's just 3 signs.
Just nitpicking a little bit,
Mhm.
with the beer one, can we get a coaster that doesn't say Lagunitas on it?
Yeah.
Just like a bland one, a plain, or even like
I'll just Photoshop it out.
this one,
Yeah.
it's perfect. So yeah.
Yeah.
Just an off-the-wall marketing comment, have nothing to do with this. While I would agree that the demographic of dual income, no children is a great one, I'll let him speak to this because he's a participant in this age group. The dual income with children, we find to be a great demographic because I think much more than in my generation, your generation feels very compelled whenever they go out to eat and drink to bring those kids with them. And just if I can make one more comment before you speak to it, they're the demographic that probably has to drink more, right?
Additional purposes.
Love that point, and so
I'm not talking
the-
about this. I'm
So
talking
like,
about-
yeah, 3/4 of the marketing will be directed to the dual income, no kids. We're not forgetting about the other people too. Like, again, we just want those people that are gonna spend more money, and those tend to be the people. I mean, but we are gonna do some.
I'll let the
marketing
experienced
for
person
kind of
comment.
Longer than, because there's not. that time.
Yes, and also we do have considerably less money, so. yeah.
Dual income, no kids. Those are the kids of the people.
Right.
Like, you know.
And Garrett, our planner, said he expanded on that. It was dual income, no kids, and then with a dog, so it was dink wad.
Yeah.
Which was kind of funny.
They do make
You
me.
threw in
use more
driving a
money than I want
Subaru.
to, so,
And a
uh,
Subaru. We could keep on
and a
it.
Subaru.
Yeah, it's me
Funny, I know.
listening to NPR in their perk and stuff.
Yep.
Nice.
Is that
Nice,
it?
colorful.
Yeah, I like.
So are there any other thoughts on any other signage that people wanted, or does this kind of hit what people were thinking in terms of some temporary signage kind of highlighting Fraser
Just location
with
wise.
highway visibility?
Would there be an option to maybe put it in kind of where like the rec center is and like the foundry and all that, where people are kind of entering Fraser, so they kind of without that huge sign, it's as we've talked about before, there's really no way to know that you're entering Fraser, but like having those signs like now entering Fraser, explore Fraser, da 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 da, heading in, and I know it's in the future, but having one of these or more like a wayfinding one by the hotel, say turn right, would be helpful. And kind of getting people over there, but if we can find a way to do it by the safe way as well, that would be absolutely massive. And way better than having it beyond that stoplight.
Mhm.
I know that's challenging with the poles and DOT and everything, but
Right.
if there is a possibility to make that happen, that would be like the most advantageous location, I think.
Spray paint the snowcat.
Yeah, I think that north side of town is a good location, just because people in the summer are going back and forth so much that maybe they are going to where they're going through town, south to north, and then on the way back, being like, oh yeah, we saw that on the way in, stop. And then
That happens a
also,
lot.
Also the Fraser River Trail, I thought like, I'm always impressed by like guerrilla marketing in cities where like you're on the subway, then you're walking and like they just do a good job of like knowing where you're gonna be.
Mhm.
I think the town owns a lot of that
Right.
along the Fraser River Trail, and that'd be a kind of cool, like you're not expecting to see something for town on the trail, you're in nature,
Mhm.
but like to pop those in for events or whatever, I think would be a cool, unique opportunity for the town too. And it's maybe not, you're gonna stop your run and go there, but
Uh-huh.
you're gonna say, well, I saw this on the run, this morning, and I feel like the Fraser River Trail is the easiest outdoor run for people who don't know where to go in Fraser, go for a run or
That
walk.
or is it Javalio
Yep.
Trail?
Mhm.
Maybe as you're coming out on that trail, a similar little gorilla sign that
Yeah.
says thirsty.
Yeah,
We have great pubs or something like that.
yeah.
Right. And we were like, Michael was asking me about, he had seen like selfie stands. I don't know where he had seen them, but it also had like it was basically a place to put your phone. Then you could put the timer on and jump around the front, and the background was like something scenic. But I think that might be an opportunity too. Like the ones I've seen have plaques on them and like a QR code that would take you somewhere, something like that maybe. I don't know. I do like kind of a guerrilla marketing idea. I don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, totally not
Mhm.
my expertise, but I'm always impressed when I see them,
Mhm.
and I think it maybe be cool.
Yeah. And Sarah, is the Fraser River Trail, is that part of the wayfinding project too? Because it runs through Fraser and Winter Park, kind of?
Potentially, I still am not 100% clear on how much that is being included.
Okay.
I think signage to the Fraser River Trail will be, whether or not like those educational signs along the Fraser River Trail. I'm curious to see if the report has anything
Okay.
about those.
And I think after we see that, because I do like, I mean, when I go biking and stuff, I see all kinds of signage in different towns and how they manage it. And I've seen a lot of places that do it well and a lot of places that don't do it well. But I always think about the wall drug signs that you see all over the US, like 5,000 miles to Wall Drug, like they have one in Nome, Alaska, like kind of quirky stuff like that. I think maybe we could think of something creative.
Yeah, the FM light signs.
All the way down
speed
there, like,
highway.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
And
You're almost
some of them
there.
are just this big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost sign pollution.
Yeah, it is.
And that's the thing that I do want to avoid is like having
Yeah.
signs
Yeah.
everywhere with different logos and
Yeah.
And that's why we wanted to collaborate with the town on an
Mhm.
event sign, because we didn't want to turn this into like
Right.
Searchlight Nevada.
And maybe a,
look too
It is, it is.
and a style.
The other place that I think makes sense to look at, is I did notice, I think when I was going around with the wayfinding folks, that if you are getting off of the train at that platform there, you do have a nice kind of view down, I forget the name of that street, of downtown Fraser, but there's no sort of sign welcoming you to Fraser from that vantage point either. And especially as we do develop more, I think that, and as there is more mountain rail traffic, I think that would be a great spot to highlight some signage.
I agree.
I think finding the Fraser Trail's huge
Mhm.
because every time I drop off an e-bike somewhere, it doesn't matter if it's on the trail, like right there at local experience, they're asking me how to get to the trail. And it's just like it's like, okay, so go over here, take a right, go through the stoplight. And at half the time I try to do it at local experience, so they're already on the trail and they still can't find it. They like ride out to the pond and then back.
Mhm.
And I'm like, just keep following that and go across the bridge.
Right.
So for some reason, people do have a really hard time finding that if they're from like Kansas or something.
And I've realized like bringing, we do events up here in the summer and stuff with friends, and most are dual income, no kids, or dual income with kids and disposable income. And it's like the event, even if it's a weekend, there's such a lack of education on like where to go rent the mountain bike, where to go mountain bike, where to go rent the e-bike, the paths,
Right.
like it's all there and easy and you could walk to all of it, but they don't know about it. So then they don't do it. And it's like, all right, beers and drinks and
Yeah.
play golf or go to the, people will go to the ski hill in the summer to ride the gondola because they're just not clued in on like where to go mountain bike.
Right,
And-
we kind of take it for granted. We know where, I mean, we know where all the mountain bike trails are, even though they're not that far from downtown.
Yeah,
Asking people to explore a little bit, like out of their comfort zone, is a little tricky. And how do we get them aware of like what's basically within a mile of
yeah.
town limits?
And I
Yeah.
think your
So-
colorful signs are like the way to do that. Those type of colorful signs that you just showed us, just having them in the right places. And as you go out of town, you hit dirt roads and people go, oh,
Oh, yeah.
that's a dirt road. I don't know what's at the end
Yeah.
of that.
Right,
Is that taking me to where the cougars live? Like, I don't know. You know, like they're very, very worried. They like to stay in town. Like go to Fort Collins, you're in town on a bike path. You go to Estes, you're in town
Yeah.
walking down the path. Go to Steamboat, you're in town walking down the path. We're not like that here.
mm-hmm,
So Explore Fraser, does it have a link to the trails?
yes.
That's what I thought.
Mhm.
And maybe just a thought with the Explore Fraser, when there are places where people can read it,
Mhm.
just in some text, where to go, how you get there, everything you need to something.
Mhm.
Just a little something extra. So when people look at it and think, well, what's this going to tell me? Or just some bullets, just an idea.
Right. It's almost like getting them to use that, like any kind of trail finding app, whether it be MTB projects or, the Gov, what is it, the Colorado one?
Yeah.
Coatrex. Yeah. I will say, as soon as you see, like for me, if I'm going out to find a mountain bike trailhead, as soon as I see other cars,
Mhm.
like it makes me feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
So it's like getting to that certain point, out there, I'm keep pointing, like there's trailheads and like parking lots. So as soon as you see that, you're like, okay, I'm in the right spot, but to get out there.
Would there
Um,
be any opportunity for like a cookie crumb kind of thing, where it's like little
Yes.
markers? They're like,
Uh-huh,
as long as you see this, you're on the right path.
right. And I think it's like trailhead,
Karen's.
And most
in the right
cyclists,
direction.
most cyclists, as an
We've got a
avid one
picture of
who've
it.
ever done an event,
Real
they're
Karen.
used to seeing little arrows
Mhm.
at intersections and stuff. And all you have to do is follow the cookie crumb.
Yeah.
And if it gets you out to, say, that parking area for Northwest Passage,
Right.
Creekside, and Flume,
Yeah,
then you've
You're
taken
good.
people to a nice introductory ride, no matter what. And then if they want to go from there, then they can look it up. But
Yeah, and that's like if you can get them to take the bike ride or do that, they're gonna come in town and have beers and
Yeah.
drinks. If you can get them to
Yeah.
spend the recreation time, they're gonna
Yep.
be like, all right, I'm starving, I'm
Yeah.
thirsty,
Yeah.
like.
Mhm.
Well, and then like in my head, like what I would do, I'd be like, oh, that parking lot isn't actually that far away from town.
All right.
Maybe I'll just park at Fraser River Beer Company or
Mhm.
Camber or the distillery, and I'll come back and my car will be here. I have a place to park. I can have a nice warm up ride. Like that's what we've always kind of talked about. Like that's the
So-
beauty of it.
What about like a central map, right? Like, so when your development's done, having a map of all this stuff that's kind of there, like when you go in the mall, you're looking for a store. You're like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
start
No, that's
here,
what
go
it
to
is.
this
It's like-
wing way over
It's
here,
like
or
Yeah.
airport, or like at the airport, you're always doing that, right?
Mhm.
You could do that, but then have it also have these areas outside that's like just go out here. The trailhead starts here, trailhead starts here, trailhead starts here,
Yeah.
and they're sitting in the center of town looking at this, going rent here, ride here.
Mhm.
Well, I know Grand Lake did like a map, and then Fraser was exploring doing that with
And-
Winter Park.
And
Is
I'm
that-
talking like like
Yeah,
a
yeah, no, like the
picture,
kiosk
like
too.
yeah,
But like my mind goes to like, influencer
True.
marketing for like Simple's had a couple like influencers come in and do
Yeah.
cool stuff. And I'm always like, oh, this is so like it makes it look so nice. And then if you had just some place to go where it's like, hey, this is how I got around Fraser, and it's that map or in digital format too.
Mhm.
But I think finding the location for the physical, hey, here's where you're going is important. But yeah, I think it's all cool, and just knowledge about where to go, what to do is like,
Mhm.
Interesting. to
Something
see.
else that I saw in Greeley that I thought could potentially be fun to steal was just at their like crosswalks and, at stoplights or just the ordinary crosswalks. While you were waiting to cross, they had small little flyers. They weren't even that big, but they were colorful and had a QR code. And you could scan them to get a map of their creative district, and it showed you where their different murals were. But it just seemed like a good way to capture some pedestrian traffic. And again,
like
you
that
didn't
too.
need to have much information because it was just the QR code, and you pulled out your phone and had the map. And then you can update that digital stuff more easily than a
Right.
Yeah.
formal kiosk.
QR codes are great. When you're a cyclist, it's hard to have your phone while you're riding.
Yeah.
So the cookie crumb thing, I mean, it's something that is well established. And if you could just get people to a singular trailhead and then put the information there, I think you really have something. And that's where maybe you have the QR code for, if you enjoyed this, here's all these other options.
Yeah.
I think the QR codes, the crosswalks and bus stops is a great idea in tandem with that. Like
Yep.
you won't
Yeah.
get the bicyclists, but
Yep.
you'll get the people, you know, wandering through
Right.
looking for where to go.
Yeah.
Which, yeah.
Yeah, because to your point,
Yeah,
I
bus
tell
stops is a great
people all the
idea.
time to park at Icebox.
Mhm.
You park, get your bike, go for a ride, hit the trails, come back, go to Distillery, go to Camber.
Right.
Yeah.
They had those
Yep.
pot planter signages that I saw during the Colfax walkthrough, where the planter had like the painted signage on it. So I don't know if that's something that could
Love
be
it.
useful for the trail, but I can send a picture.
That'd be great.
That's a good idea.
Did you put the like kiosk in the middle of the median so then everyone sees a bunch of humans in the median? Slow down.
I will say, standing in those medians when it's like heavy traffic, and
It's
people-
scary.
It is a
Yeah.
little scary, even though it seems like you'd have plenty of room. It's a little
Yeah.
unnerving.
When nobody stops.
Yeah.
Yeah. No one's.
Yeah, I just haven't experienced that. Every time I've walked across there or drive past there, it seems like people are all stopping. So maybe I've just been
Really?
lucky.
I think the lights have
You're
helped.
tall.
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Multiple times a
Right,
day,
yeah.
and I rarely get someone actually stopping before I start walking across and just praying that they stop.
Yeah, and like it's
Yeah.
almost like you got to get to the median to get northbound to stop if you're coming
Yep.
from west to east.
Mhm.
And then there's no light on the median, so it's yeah.
Yeah,
That
But
or
if
have
that's
kids.
coming, that'll be
yeah, you
good.
guys do a lot more than I do. So
Yeah. No, I just sit in either of those two restaurant places and just people blowing guys. Stand here. But
So we do have just a few minutes left. I was gonna say if there are any other ideas for different district enhancements, feel free to shoot me an email before our May meeting and we can get stuff on the agenda. I think if we want to try to think about ways to help activate kind of our outdoor spaces in the summer months, maybe around like Mural Park, so that we're bringing people into some of those businesses in that area as well. As somebody who is dual income with kids, I tend to gravitate towards things for the kiddos to do, similar to what Barry said, and then mom and dad can stand there and drink and have adult conversations. So I don't know if there's some sort of like pop-up play equipment we could put in Mural Park or something like that. But yeah, just any ideas or thoughts, feel free to shoot me a note before our next meeting. Otherwise, I don't know if there's
have
any other
one-
updates from the group.
I have one like free one. Like at some point would the DDA be willing to like do a volunteer day and like just clean up now that the snow is gone? Like there's a lot of trash. Well, I think I saw the poop thing in Rural Park was really frustrating. Like stuff like that. Like if we could go and like start cleaning up, maybe show like DDA day of cleaning around the DDA just to like put ourselves out there and show we're actually doing stuff, even if it is, since we don't have a lot of budget, it might be a free opportunity to drum up some interest.
I think that's a good idea.
Some morning, mid-morning.
Yeah, some morning.
couple hours,
Yeah,
10 to
exactly.
noon.
Doesn't have to be a whole thing, just
I'm
getting
good
out
at
there.
picking up trash. Picker,
Yeah.
town to give us.
Yeah.
Maybe prior to
Vests.
Memorial Day.
Yeah,
I think that's
Yeah.
a really good idea also. I think we should try and come up with ideas of how to prevent the bad poop situation for
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah.
It's just repulsive and it's not to pick on anybody, but it's materially worse than it was before the apartments opened.
I was just emailing with Michael. We just bought a bunch of signs that we're gonna put up. They're incorrect right now, but it's for that, our park specifically on our property at Kosalig, you know, please pick up after your pet, areas under video surveillance, which it will be now. And
Well, the
maximum
majority
fine.
of the residents are walking the dogs in the park.
Yeah, and it's our residents and everyone else in Fraser.
I'm aware,
And,
but it is
but
way worse than it was.
what we're doing on our property is just signage and surveillance. And so I don't duplicating that signage. We got, 18 by 24s and 18 by 12s and like 4 of them to put up around the park. I don't know if just more of that.
Is it in your rental agreement?
Oh yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's also
yeah.
just like general, I don't know, people worrying about the next coming along because everybody's lazy now. Like at my shop, I've noticed that every time I walk in there, all of the chairs are out. Every single
Yeah.
one of them set out, like they're not tucked in. Nobody puts their chair back at all.
Yeah.
Like old people, young people, they've all been taught, they all forget. And I keep like making a point every time I walk in, I'll like push them in all loud, and like the poor people in the corner look at me sitting in chairs, and I'll be like, yeah, nobody puts their chair in anymore. I don't know why. I thought we were all taught this in second grade, you know. And I'm like not trying to be rude, but I am sort of putting it out there that
Yeah.
everybody's like, they're not considerate anymore.
Yeah.
At all.
Well, like once we have the security cameras up, we can enforce a rental
Mhm.
agreement for our tenants and
Right.
like,
Yeah,
Right.
it's
report
everybody
people
else.
And I just mean in Fraser, like
Yeah.
that could be something that the DDA pushes. Like we're really trying to be considerate here.
Yeah.
Back in high school, we had this like funny thing going along. Instead of like rock pounding, we would grab their hand and be like, "We shake in Winter Park, man." And it was just a way of saying like we're a little bit more formal here. We're not trying to be like this town over here or whatever. So we could say like the consideration goes further, you know, and just try to really push that because we all know how it is when a million tourists come in town, even the people here that are serving them start
Yeah.
to be less considerate towards them as well.
Well, I
And those people are like, we're paying you. So, you know, in order for you to get a tip or to do anything, you have to like completely serve us. It's like, no,
Well, I
kind of
think
goes both ways.
with like the mural park, and like maybe it's not a good example because there's dog poop all over our turf, but like I look at like what Denver Beer Co does at their locations with the turf next to the drinking, and it's like the dream for adults with kids because all the kids are in a somewhat safe little area to go play and the adults can watch and drink. But if the mural park wasn't just wood shavings and it was like the whole, because right now it's wood shavings,
Yeah.
a strip of concrete. So it's like, it's almost like the broken window, like
It is.
metaphor, whatever. Like, oh, if it looks like crap, I'm going to treat it like crap. Not that it looks like crap, but it looks like
They
not
get away with
intentional
it.
space for a kid
Yeah.
to go play at.
Yeah.
And I think if there's like an intentional playground,
Huh.
you kind of have to be a bigger jerk to go not pick up after your dog in a playground where kids are going to be or are.
Yeah.
Right over here all the time.
Yeah.
No,
And people walk their dogs over here all the
Right.
time. So I think maybe mixing that in could
yeah,
help
I think if it was
curtail
more
it.
utilized, I mean,
Yeah, you're
I can see it from no one uses it, not in the winter specifically, but even in the summer, no one really uses it unless we actually have an event there.
Yeah.
So if it's utilized, people are actively there, you can't just let it happen because people can see you.
Yeah.
Right. Well, in Winter Park at their park, it's all grass
Yeah.
and it looks really pretty and people stop just to go hang out there
Yeah.
for whatever apparent reason.
Yeah.
So we do need more of those sort of green looking spaces here.
By the ponds would be
Okay.
nice. Just no green area.
Green,
over
yeah.
there.
Mhm.
Sarah, do you have more of the I Love Fraser stickers? Can you give them to the board members? We were just talking about
Very
the
good.
emotional attachment to a place.
Sarah, with a couple of minutes left, do you have any updates on the Colorado Department of Transportation grant program, the Main Street, whatever you called it?
Main Street program.
Yeah, Main
The
Street program.
$250,000 opportunity? You mentioned it.
Is that's directed at me, Barry?
Yes.
Updates in terms of,
Are we going to apply? What's going on? When do we have to apply?
so the last time we talked about it, what I had shared was, the town got a revitalizing Main Street grant. for $250,000. It's going towards the bike park. The DDA can apply separate from the town, and we are eligible to apply while the town has that money. My sense is we would be more competitive if we at least wait for the town to spend that money, which should happen this summer.
Okay.
I did see a list of budget cutbacks that the state were making. And I saw something that made me wonder if that grant might not be continuing at this stage, but I need to look into that. I haven't had a chance to do so. It referenced something that was being cut that was named slightly different, but may have been indicating that grant. So I'll try to figure that out. But really, though, we would need a project and what we're looking to do with that in terms of applying for that grant. So if there's ideas on what we could do, it does have a relatively low match. I want to say
Right.
it's 10% if I'm remembering
Right.
correctly, from our bike park grant application. So it's definitely something that we could look at, particularly in terms of dedicating money towards a match. Again, if we have a project in mind, that we want to do with that.
I'm happy to draft a proposal for that grant application. Unless Lori's already doing it, just with some things that I think might be good, like sidewalks, like that park, areas we could spend money, and then people can opine on.
It just intuitively, from what little Sarah described of it, it seems like it's something that should focus on US 40 because it is,
I think
isn't it
so.
called Main Street?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Maybe we could use
And
that.
it could
And it
Towards
was
that
that same grant that actually provided money, if I remember correctly, for Mural Park when that was created.
Isn't it like
So
1.5 miles or something is like the path from the rec center into actual Fraser? So 2 miles, it's 1.5. I think it's 1 mile to, yeah, it's because I've run it and
So
it's
about
not
half-
far. And
about
if there was something that was like 1 minute until you're, like you're 1 mile away from the best time of your life, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's like people are really like, oh, I don't want to go across that expanse of land over there to get to like this awesome place.
For like a while.
Yeah.
Until you, unless you actually drive it, and then it's like opens up quickly.
Yeah,
55-foot building would help that.
it's gonna be there. So
but Greg, going back to that, I mean, if you guys wanted to bring different ideas of what we might want to look at, including in something like that to a subsequent meeting, we can definitely do that.
Yeah, I
The
could
overhead
just,
sign is my vote on that because that'd pay for at least most of it, I would assume. The overhead sign,
Oh, yeah, an overhead sign of some sort
but
or signage.
that's my
to-
vote.
over the highway. That would
Yeah.
be great.
Well,
please
and I'll
note that
check
wasn't me.
back and see.
I've been on that page for a year.
yeah.
Yeah, I think lower hanging fruit is like land the town owns adjacent to the highway and
Totally.
Yeah.
signage. But I would love to see that.
Yep.
All
All righty.
right, Lori, anything
Yeah, I
else?
think no, I think we're good. And no other comments, we can adjourn.
Great.
Right,
Thanks all.
Thank you.
I try.
Thank you.
Try.
To adjourn.
Second. Pages patiently. waiting over there.
All right, thank y'all.
Is it